Lin Yu's first love got cancer. In order to accompany her first love through the last journey of life, Lin Yu wants to divorce me. I tried to win her back, saying once we divorce, I would completely forget her. Lin Yu threw down the divorce agreement, saying I was selfish and full of lies. Later, her first love was misdiagnosed, deliberately deceiving her for money. And the system also erased my memories related to Lin Yu. On our wedding anniversary, Lin Yu proposed to end this marriage. Let's find time this week to complete the divorce procedures, she said calmly. Yuan Bai doesn't have much time left. He has terminal lung cancer. I need to accompany him through his final journey. At the dinner table, the carefully prepared dinner had gone cold. Those candles now seemed to be mocking me as an outsider. The premonition in my heart finally became reality. Her heart had long drifted away. Since Du Yuanbai returned to the country, she came home increasingly late, and the frequency of her business trips rose sharply. Our conversations became fewer and fewer. I tried to talk to her about new things she liked, but was always impatiently interrupted, with weariness revealed between the lines. On our wedding anniversary, I went to great lengths, just hoping to make her smile. However, before the food was even warm and she had just returned home, she impatiently brought up the word divorce. I knew her heart was no longer with me. With clenched fists, after several deep breaths, I finally uttered, Lin Yu, after we divorce, I will lose my memory. This was fate. No one could change it. Hearing this, her expression changed dramatically, her previous calmness instantly frozen. Yu Chenin, you need to know your limits. Are you treating me like a fool? You'll lose your memory after divorce. Why not say you can't live without me? Just as I was about to speak, exhaustion showed on her face as she closed her eyes. All these years, I've had enough of living with someone who has no emotions. After being together for so many years, she actually said there was no emotion between us. I was stunned. Her words were like ice, sinking into the lake of my heart. If you have no feelings for me, why did you marry me? She met my shock, a flash of panic in her eyes, but before she could answer, Du Yuanbai's call interrupted everything. I watched her gaze soften as she turned away to speak quietly, then grabbed her purse ready to leave. Today is our anniversary. Where are you going? I asked. She desperately tried to get past me, but I wouldn't budge. In frustration, the crisp sound of a slap rang out. You already know, why bother asking? Get out of my way. Lin Yu's gaze was cold as a blade, full of hostility toward me. I finally stepped aside. After Lin Yu left, the system's electronic voice coldly reminded me. Host, divorce means mission failure. And memory erasure. I sat stunned at the empty dinner table when my phone notification sounded, and Lin Yu's new status update caught my eye. In the photo, she held a cake with a radiant smile, and in one corner, a man's profile was faintly visible. Beautiful moments should be spent with the ones you love most. It's as if it was sent out specifically to humiliate me. Even from just a glimpse, I immediately recognized it was Du Yuanbai. Somehow, I found myself already on the way to the hospital. Following the clues in my memory, I found Du Yuanbai's hospital room, yet felt inexplicably nervous. Gently pushing open the door, their conversation was clearly audible. Yeah, today is your anniversary with Yu Chenin, yet you came to celebrate with me. Won't he be angry? Lin Yu was peeling an orange, and upon hearing my name, her face showed disgust. Don't mention him. It ruins the mood. If you hadn't left, I would never have agreed to marry Yu Chenin. My heart ached terribly, so that's how it was. She gently placed the orange into Yuanbai's mouth, then nestled against his chest. A hint of craftiness flashed into Yuanbai's eyes as he probed. Yeah, in your heart. Is there still only me? Lin Yu's hands paused slightly. Yuanbai, no matter whom I marry or where I am, this heart will forever belong to you. This scene made my heart ache to the point of suffocation. I suppressed the pain and dialed Lin Yu's number. She glimpsed the incoming call, her expression slightly changing, intending to hang up, but Du Yuanbai beat her to it, answering the phone. Yeah, where are you? I tried to keep my voice steady. Didn't you see my social media post? I'm with Yuanbai, don't disturb us. Her tone carried obvious displeasure. A chill spread throughout my body. She wouldn't even bother with a perfunctory response. Du Yuanbai shot me a victor's smile. He had already noticed my arrival and deliberately arranged this show. He leaned down to whisper in Lin Yu's ear, and she suddenly looked up, her gaze meeting mine. Yu Chenin, what are you doing here? Are you stalking me? How disgusting. Not only did she show no embarrassment, but she went on the offensive, questioning me. Bitterness surged within me, yet I couldn't help but give a bitter smile, a smile full of sorrow and desolation. Lin Yu, are you with me because you have no other choice? I looked at her intently, each word questioning Lin Yu's heart. Lin Yu was startled, seeming to catch the unusual emotion in my tone, a trace of suspicion flashing through her eyes. Du Yuanbai keenly noticed the change in her expression and interjected at the right moment. Yu Chenin, I'm sorry for disturbing your relationship. Perhaps I shouldn't have come back. Yeah, this is all my fault. I'm the one who disrupted your lives. Don't blame you, Chang'an. If you have any complaints, direct them at me. After saying this, he lowered his head in apology, putting on a pitiful appearance. This maneuver undoubtedly added fuel to the fire. Lin Yu immediately shielded Du Yuanbai behind her, her eyes filled with deep disgust toward me. That's right, marrying you was my last resort. From beginning to end, I never loved you. Now that Yuanbai has returned, I can't wait to leave your side. Are you satisfied with that answer? Anger flushed Rin Yu's eyes red. These words seemingly squeezed through gritted teeth, carrying bone-deep hatred. A deafening boom rang in my ears as the last defense in my heart collapsed completely. Her every word cut deep into my heart. Host, the target's affection for you is dropping rapidly. You should show weakness. The system's anxious prompt sounded in my ears. But my heart was already like dead ashes. I unconsciously stepped back, forcing a bitter smile. I agree. When convenient, please give me the divorce agreement. After speaking, I left the hospital room without looking back. Perhaps my decisiveness shocked her, as a flash of dismay crossed her face. But that no longer mattered. On the way home, an inexplicable sadness welled up in my chest. How did we end up in this situation step by step? Once, we had days when we truly cared for each other. Du Yuanbai, Lin Yu's first love, and also the biggest stumbling block on my path to winning Lin Yu. When the system assigned the mission, Lin Yu and Du Yuan were already together, which made my task much more difficult. The first time I met Lin Yu in high school, I fell for her at first sight. Not because she was my target for the mission, but because Lin Yu was truly outstanding, with extraordinary charm. To get close to her, I tried everything I could, and finally became her good friend, but it stopped there. Du Yuanbai grew up with her, and they were inseparable. However, during senior year, Du Yuanbai left without saying goodbye and went abroad. This led to Lin Yu's failure in the college entrance exam, forcing her to repeat a year. She was deeply hurt, and I took this opportunity to stay firmly by her side, believing that companionship would eventually win her heart. Finally, my persistent efforts won her consent, and at the moment my proposal succeeded, my mission value reached its peak. I could have taken this opportunity to leave, but the moment I saw the wedding ring Rin Yu had carefully selected for me, I gave up on going home and chose to live with her. A new strategy mission was activated, and the punishment changed from elimination to forgetting. After several years of marriage, we treated each other with respect and courtesy, appearing to the outside world as a model couple that many envied. Just when I thought these days would continue forever, Du Yuanbai returned to the country. From then on, everything changed. The tenderness between us seemed to vanish overnight. And she even asked me for a divorce for Du Yuanbai's sake. I finally understood that even during those seemingly beautiful years, she never had the slightest love for me. Yu Chang'an was facing a very real divorce. Rin Yu was not joking. Her actions were swift and resolute. She hired a lawyer, drafted the agreement, and the news spread like wildfire. Seemingly overnight, it became the hot topic of conversation throughout the neighborhood. Phone calls from family and friends came one after another, simply wanting to confirm whether this sudden change was true. In many people's eyes hid sympathy, thick or thin, as if I were already the defeated general in this marriage battle. Lin Yu, with the help of a lawyer, drafted a property division agreement, mostly following our prenuptial agreement, with 80% of the common property going to Lin Yu, to which I had no objection. Despite the many unfavorable terms in the agreement, I still signed my name with great difficulty, each stroke cutting like a knife through my heart, until the final stroke fell, and pain surged like a tide. I gritted my teeth and forced myself to finish signing the entire document. Lin Yu took the divorce agreement, her smile sweet as honey, yet it was a fatal blow to me. My heart felt as if it were being gnawed by countless insects, the pain unbearable, causing me to bend over, sweat pouring down. Only by clenching my fists and pounding my chest could I catch a moment's breath. I knew that this was a system warning, suggesting that signing this agreement would result in severe punishment. Before I could recover from this sudden change, Lin Yu cast a disdainful glance at me. Yu Chang'an, what act are you putting on now? Trying to attract my attention by playing pitiful? Don't waste your energy, I don't care at all. She took this as my usual trick, and under her urging, we got into the car. Lin Yu drove impatiently to the Civil Affairs Bureau. While waiting in line, I sat beside her and pointed to my clothes, asking if she remembered that I wore the same outfit on our wedding day. She merely raised her eyes slightly, full of weariness. I don't remember, such an old style should have been discarded long ago. After speaking, she moved to another seat, deliberately creating distance between us. I understood in my heart that, to her, I was like old clothing, already abandoned by time. Without further words, I silently waited for my number to be called. The process was surprisingly quick. Just 15 minutes later, divorce certificate in hand. As I was leaving, Lin Yu deliberately quickened her pace, staying far away from me. Why are you running around when you're not feeling well? What if you catch a cold? She spoke softly to Du Yuanbai in front of another car, while Du Yuanbai inside the car flashed me a smug smile. The car sped away, leaving me alone standing there, feeling lost. My mission had failed. As my memories were about to be erased, the system asked if I wanted to try to win her back. I gently shook my head. The long torment seemed to have finally come to an end. I felt an unprecedented sense of relief. Host, the punishment protocol is about to initiate. Please prepare yourself. The system's words conveyed helplessness. I closed my eyes and self-mockingly uttered a single word. All right. I never expected the memory erasure would be so direct and brutal. I had no time to react as a truck suddenly drove toward me. In that moment, my mind went blank, followed by a roar and my body being thrown into the air, tumbling. The world fell into an abyss. When I woke up again, a month had already passed. The doctors were astonished by my recovery. After all, that serious accident was enough to have left me in a vegetative state, bedridden for life. Yet I not only woke up but could speak and move, which was considered a medical miracle. After a thorough examination, they found that my bodily functions had fully recovered. I think this must be because of the system. Unfortunately, due to severe head trauma, I lost part of my memory. The doctors couldn't say when it might return. However, I didn't feel too much grief because I remembered everyone and everything except for Linyu. My sister told me the accident happened on the day of my divorce, certainly an accident caused by excessive grief. She said I once deeply loved Linyu, yet now she alone was forgotten. Those years were like a photograph from which Linyu had been ruthlessly cropped out. But none of this matters to me anymore. A week later, I left the hospital, and everything seemed to return to normal. At the entrance, we happened to meet a couple. My sister introduced them as Linyu and her former lover Du Yuanbai. Well, what a coincidence to run into you even here. Linyu, upon seeing us, not only didn't avoid us, but made a somewhat sarcastic remark. What's this? Are you disabled now? Why are you in a wheelchair? She said. Linyu, be polite. Don't be so harsh. My sister stood in front of me, blocking those words that might upset me, afraid that I would be triggered again. My sister told me that from the time of the accident until now, Linyu had never come to see me. She is a cold-hearted person. I carefully examined Linyu, as if meeting her for the first time. Fair-skinned, well-proportioned, except for those thin lips that indeed conveyed a sense of callousness. She noticed my gaze, looked me up and down twice, and with the corner of her mouth lifting, said, "You're acting quite convincingly. It's just a car accident. Putting on this innocent act. What kind of trick are you trying to play to get my attention?" she continued. "How many times have you played this game? Continuing the act won't help. I won't pay attention to you anymore." "Excuse me, miss, do we know each other?" As I asked this, the surroundings suddenly fell silent. Linyu's expression turned unpleasant, as if trying to judge the sincerity of my words. She attempted to catch any hint of deception in my eyes, but my words were completely honest. She couldn't find anything, and soon, that familiar mocking smile returned to her lips. "You Chainan, you've really become more and more clever. Pretending not to know me is a good move. Haha, such good acting," she taunted. "I'm marrying Yuanbai on Friday. Do you dare come to the ceremony?" A cruel light flickered in her eyes, as if she deliberately wanted to hurt me. However, I no longer remember anything between us. She was destined to be disappointed. I nodded and said, "Congratulations, meetings are always fated. Don't forget to send me an invitation in advance." Hearing the affirmative response, Linyu's expression became even more strange, as if she had seen something incredible. Fine. You're going to keep acting like this, aren't you? Then Yuanbai, and I will be waiting for your grand arrival. Be a man and don't run away when the time comes." After saying this, she walked into the hospital arm in arm with Du Yuanbai. I gazed at their receding figures, feeling something indescribable in my heart. Looking up, I met my sister's gaze, her eyes full of sympathy. I gently patted her hand and smiled reassuringly. "Sis, don't worry. I just want to join the celebration." After leaving the hospital and returning home, my buddy Song Imo had just returned from overseas and invited me to get together. When Song Imo saw me, his eyes were full of astonishment. "How did you end up like this?" He pushed my wheelchair into the private room and sat down. "Don't tell me Linyu did this to you?" I rolled my eyes at him. "Do you really think I'm that weak? Like I could be pushed around by a woman?" Unexpectedly, he nodded with a serious face. "Anyone with eyes can see how crazy you are about Linyu. Whatever she says goes, and you wouldn't dare object. So even if I'm right about this, I wouldn't be surprised." Apparently, in everyone's eyes, I was nothing but a lovesick fool. But you probably don't know that Linyu and I have already completed our divorce procedures. I took a sip of water, then dropped another bombshell. Also, I was in a car accident recently and have forgotten all about her. Oh, and she's getting remarried to someone with the surname Du. Watching Song Mo's eyes grow wider and wider, I could barely hold back my laughter. He wanted to dig up some inside information from me, but I only remembered these outcomes. As for the process, it was all based on what my sister told me. Is the guy called Du Yuanbai? Song Mo asked. I hesitantly nodded. I think so. Song Mo got excited all of a sudden. Back in high school, I told you not to chase after Lin Yu. Don't go after her, but you wouldn't listen. I knew that girl had a calculating mind. She's been keeping Du Yuanbai in her heart all these years. Being with you was just using you as a backup plan. I nodded with partial understanding, as I had completely forgotten everything Song Mo was talking about. Tisk, Song Mo saw my bewildered face and suddenly sat down next to me, putting his arm around my shoulder. Those who trample on others' sincere feelings will get their comeuppance sooner or later. Yu Qinggan, don't worry. As your brother, I'll definitely help you get even. Without even understanding the full story, he already wanted to stand up for me. This kind of loyalty warmed my heart. Sometimes, genuine friendship is indeed much more reliable than romance. As for Lin Yu, she was also a person of action. It wasn't long before her wedding invitation arrived in my hands. Since I was invited, not going would seem petty, given that we were once husband and wife. I even prepared a generous red envelope, but my sister scolded me, saying I was being foolish. Lin Yu, in order to let the whole world witness her childhood sweetheart relationship with Du Yuanbai, specially invited a bunch of media, planning to live-stream the entire event. At the pre-wedding press conference, Lin Yu, beaming with joy, announced to the media that her company had reached a cooperation with the Du Group. Looking at Du Yuanbai, she said tenderly, Yuanbai, my previous marriage left me scarred all over, but it was you who made me believe in love again, believe that destiny has its own plan. After all these years of twists and turns, I'm glad it's you in the end. Listening from below the stage, though her words were affectionate, I could sense a hint of sarcasm, feeling that Lin Yu was alluding to me. Sure enough, as soon as she finished speaking, her gaze locked onto me. It was obvious that Du Yuanbai was using Lin Yu's influence to expand his business empire. Not to mention, Lin Yuewei and Du Yuanbai were already lovers, with her being unfaithful in her marriage and abandoning her husband and family. However, everyone pretended not to notice while speaking flattering words. Lin Yu enjoyed all this, yet always gave me fake smiles, probably wanting to see me embarrassed. Unfortunately for her, I disappointed her, as I felt absolutely nothing, and was even a bit bored. Just as I was pondering this, the venue suddenly erupted in chaos. The slideshow that was originally playing their love story suddenly changed to Du Yuanbai's scandalous news. A series of intimate photos showing him with different women appeared. Du Yuanbai immediately panicked and hurriedly called for the backstage to fix it, only to receive the response. The computer has been hacked, we can't control it. Lin Yu froze on the spot, while the media below burst into an uproar, camera shutters clicking incessantly. Ms. Lin, is this the man you abandoned your original spouse for and insisted on marrying? Mr. Lin, given the circumstances, will the wedding still continue? Reporters surrounded Lin Yu, pressing so close that they practically pushed their microphones against her face. But the story wasn't over yet. The screen transitioned to show a scene in a consultation room. Du Yuanbai's voice, tinged with smugness, rang out as he waved a lung cancer diagnosis report in his hand, with a playful smile at the corner of his mouth. Brother, it's all thanks to this misdiagnosis report that the woman from the Su family believed my story. Guess what? After hearing that I didn't have long to live, she actually divorced her husband. Haha, it's absolutely hilarious. In all my years, I've never met such a naive woman. The doctor looked a bit troubled and cautioned. The initial misdiagnosis was indeed the hospital's mistake, but using this incorrect report to deceive others is truly improper. Du Yuanbai ignored the doctor's words and continued laughing to himself. Once I marry her and get my hands on her money, I'll find an opportunity to say the diagnosis was wrong, and that will be the end of it. Pretend you didn't see this. If I don't tell anyone, who will know? The scene on the screen played over and over. Sweat poured down Du Yuanbai's forehead. He wanted to leave, but security guards blocked his way, preventing him from moving. In desperation, he grabbed a chair and smashed it against the screen, one blow after another, until the screen turned into a mosaic of colorful blocks. Yeah, don't believe any of that. It's all maliciously edited by others. Someone must be trying to set me up. After dropping the chair, Du Yuanbai fell to his knees in front of Lin Yu, begging for forgiveness. I understand now. It was Yu Qinan who did this. It must be him. Yeah, you have to believe me. Lin Yu's gaze was empty, as if she was contemplating something, but when Du Yuanbai mentioned me, her eyes suddenly turned toward me. There was no anger in them, but rather a hint of indescribable despair. Afterwards, she almost uncontrollably slapped Du Yuanbai dozens of times, not stopping even when his face became swollen. Below the stage, there was laughter and uproar, as Lin Yu fled the scene in panic. I knew all this was Song Mo's work, and felt this drama was truly satisfying to watch. But in my heart, there was calm without ripples. 3 days had passed since the wedding incident. That night, a call came in from an unfamiliar number, and after answering, it was Lin Yu's voice. "Yu Chinen, I'm drunk and feeling terrible. Can you come get me? You have the wrong number." I hung up without much thought. However, in the middle of the night, there came rustling sounds from outside my door. I picked up a baseball bat, thinking it was a thief, and went to check. It turned out to be Lin Yu, who had forgotten to return the spare key after our divorce. She stood in the entryway, bending down to change her shoes, opened the shoe cabinet, and paused for a moment. Inside were only my shoes. She looked up, her eyes full of desolation. "Where are my yellow slippers?" I smelled the alcohol on her body, glanced at her faintly. I threw them away. "Everything related to you here. I've disposed of all of it." Lin Yu opened her mouth slightly, walking quickly toward the master bedroom. "You even threw away our wedding photos?" There was anger hidden in her words. The wall where the wedding photo had hung was now blank. She looked at me, received an affirmative answer, and her words suddenly stopped. Tears welled up in her eyes. She suddenly rushed forward, hitting me with both hands. "Yu Chinen, you're too heartless. That picture was drawn by our own hands, stroke by stroke. How could you just throw it away? In fact, before being discarded, that wedding photo had already been badly damaged, full of holes made by sharp objects. No explanation was needed to know what had happened. Ms. Su, please recognize your position. This is now my home. Letting you in was already extremely lenient. Don't overstep again." I added, "We're already divorced. You shouldn't appear here anymore. It's not appropriate." During the argument, Lin Yu's gaze suddenly froze. "Yu Chinen, you say you don't remember? Then why do you still keep our wedding ring?" "The wedding ring." I remained silent, tossing the ring on my hand into the trash can. Lin Yu's eyes instantly widened. "You threw away the ring?" I replied nonchalantly. "We're already divorced. This is just garbage. Why would I keep it?" She seemed shocked, suddenly lunging toward the trash can, searching through it while sobbing, as if she had gone mad. "How can this be garbage? This is the witness to our relationship." Looking at her desperately anxious appearance, I held back my laughter, not understanding her reaction. Perhaps it was a witness before, but now to me, it's nothing. Might as well not keep it. Better to dispose of it early, saves taking up my space. These words seemed to hit a sore spot for her. Lin Yu stopped what she was doing and asked with reddening eyes. "Yu Chinen, have you really forgotten me completely? Do you really not love me anymore?" Tears were streaming down her face, but my heart remained unmoved. "Miss Lin, that's quite a big joke you're making. I heard from others that you were the one who dumped me first, so what's this innocent act about now? Talking about love or not loving. Don't you find it ridiculous?" Lin Yu seemed confused by my series of questions, standing there in a daze, mumbling. "You used to be so gentle with me, never willing to be harsh." Looking at her bewildering behavior, I felt inexplicably irritated and said bluntly, "First, I never loved you. Don't flatter yourself. Second, please get out of my house immediately, or I'll call the police. Trespassing, understand?" After saying that, I went inside without looking back. Annoying, this is really annoying. I don't know when Lin Yu left, but to prevent her from sneaking into my home again at night, I had someone change the password lock early the next morning. Due to the public opinion storm, the company's stock plummeted, and Du Yuanbai hasn't shown his face since running away from his wedding. Lin Yu became the target of public criticism online, with constant abuse, being pointed at and talked about wherever she went. Then one day, completely drunk, she showed up at my doorstep, crying and begging me to take her in. "Yu Chainan, you have the softest heart. You've just temporarily forgotten me, but when you remember, you'll love me again." She caused an uproar outside my door, so I put on headphones to block out the noise. Thankfully, I had changed the lock, otherwise I would have had to accompany her in another melodrama. But the peace didn't last long before the sound of an ambulance approached from a distance and finally stopped below my building. When I opened the door, I saw a horrifying scene. Lin Yu lying on the ground with a pool of crimson beneath her skirt, her face deathly pale. The incident happened right at my doorstep, so I had no choice but to follow the ambulance. On the way, Lin Yu hazily woke up once, clutching her stomach in pain. When she saw me, she said, "Yu Chinen, it hurts." She tried to reach for my hand, but I coldly moved away. She even managed a bitter smile. "But being able to see you one more time, I'm content. I can die without regrets now." Her near-death appearance actually made me nervous, not because I was concerned for her, but because I was afraid I'd be held responsible if something happened to her at my doorstep. Fortunately, the examination results weren't fatal, but they weren't good either. Lin Yu was 1 month pregnant, but due to days of heavy drinking, she lost the baby. What's worse, they discovered she was infected with HIV, almost certainly from Du Yuanbai. After the anesthesia wore off and Lin Yu sobered up, I thought about saying some comforting words, but then decided against it. Whatever I'd say would be meaningless at a time like this. Just as I was about to turn and leave, she grabbed me. Yu Chunin, you'll stay with me, won't you? My heart tightened, feeling an indescribable discomfort. I forcefully pulled my hand away from hers and walked out without looking back. I may have lost my memory, but that doesn't mean I'm stupid. Lin Yu was clearly trying to get me to deal with this mess. Yu Chunin, just listen to me. Her voice was pleading, with a slight tremor. I've been through a lot lately, and I've come to understand many things. I've lost much, but I don't feel the pain from that. The only thing that makes me want to die is losing you. I was blinded by infatuation, which is why I was deceived by Du Yuanbai. Lin Yu was crying so hard she could barely breathe. Now I realize how terribly wrong I was. Every night in my dreams, I see all our moments together. Those beautiful memories keep replaying in my mind, and I can't shake them away. I know I'm insignificant, Yu Chunin, but I love you. I regret it now. Can you forgive me this time and give me another chance? Hearing her say this, I only felt my stomach churning. She wasn't regretting losing me, nor was she regretting only now realizing she loved me. She simply couldn't accept that no one was pampering her anymore. She thought I could be easily manipulated, wanted me to change my mind to prove her worth and charm, just to salvage her pitiful self-esteem. I've told you countless times, I don't love you anymore. Stop pestering me. If you hadn't collapsed at my doorstep, I wouldn't even care whether you lived or died right now. I paused, then added, Miss Lin, have some dignity. You're only making me despise you more and find you disgusting. I saw something crumbling in her eyes, and she said in disbelief, No, that's not it. You've just lost your memory, forgotten how to love me. Once you remember, you'll love me again. It must be so. It must be. As she spoke, she grabbed the cup from the bedside table and was about to smash it on my head, trying to restore my memory this way. But the physical difference between us meant I quickly subdued her. Blood trickled down from my temple, and she was terrified. I'm sorry, Yu Chunin. I didn't mean to hurt you. I'm sorry. She kept her head down, slapping herself repeatedly, and still not satisfied, picked up the cup from the floor to hit herself on the head, but I stopped her just in time. Remorse and pain distorted her haggard face, making it look extraordinarily fierce. But there's no medicine for regret in this world. I shouted in anger, You're crazy, and quickly left the hospital room. Perhaps the consecutive blows were too heavy, and Lin Yu was diagnosed with a psychological disorder. After a period of recovery, she was admitted to a professional psychological rehabilitation center for care. During that time, I didn't seek out any news about her, nor did I set foot in that place. I focused all my energy on preparing for my personal art exhibition. My sister had once mentioned that traveling the world and holding exhibitions was my dream, but after marrying Lin Yu, I never picked up a brush again. As a business elite, Lin Yu expected a partner who could stand shoulder to shoulder with her. In my efforts to accommodate Lin Yu, I gradually forgot my original passion, with my mind filled only with profits. Those dreams about art and travel had long been cast aside. When I met Lin Yu again, it was 2 months later. At that time, I was discussing collaboration details with the exhibition hall manager when she passed by before my eyes. In just 2 months, her changes saddening, her face haggard, eye sockets sunken, thin to the bone. Though her gaze was unfocused, her steps were unusually hurried, as if desperately searching for something. I continued my conversation with the supervisor without pausing. But suddenly there was a commotion outside. I went out to look and witnessed Lin Yu thrusting a blade deep into a man's chest, blood gushing like a fountain. That person was actually Du Yuanbai. Lin Yu's eyes were wide open as she stabbed him again without hesitation. It's all because of you. You ruined me. If it weren't for you, how would I have lost Yu Chunin and fallen to this state? Love is gone, family is gone, money is gone, and you've tarnished my reputation. Du Yuanbai, you're worse than a beast. This debt, you must repay. Lin Yu lost control of her emotions and, ignoring others' attempts to stop her, attacked Du Yuanbai almost maniacally. The police quickly arrived at the scene, but it was too late. Du Yuanbai, stabbed multiple times, lay motionless on the ground. Lin Yu was arrested by the police, awaiting the judgment of the law. Until the day she was executed, that cold electronic voice sounded again. Host, given that the target of your mission no longer exists, you can choose to recover that lost memory. What is your wish? I shook my head. Even though I once had deep feelings for Lin Yu, she no longer matters to me now. Unpleasant memories are better